Hello and welcome back to my 10 favorite people. Hope you're doing well. Absolutely unbelievable. As of this morning, Bitcoin briefly traded above its previous all-time high, thanks to another day of strong ETF inflows yesterday, even with quite a bit of outflows from Grayscale. And of course, this is the first time in Bitcoin's history that we've seen it trade above previous all-time highs before the halving, proving once again that this cycle is playing out differently and things are moving ahead of schedule as investors try to front run the halving and front run these ETF inflows. And now we have seen a bit of a rejection off of the previous all-time high, which is to be expected and something we also saw in the previous cycle. And I'm already seeing a lot of people talking about double top and we grabbed liquidity and now it's time to go lower and you fell for the trap. I think it's very unlikely that this is a double top, and I think a lot of both long and short leverage traders are going to lose a ton of money trying to time this breakout or time this double top short. And you already see that reflected in the liquidations for the past 24 hours. Even though Bitcoin has kind of been within a 5% range, you see about 400 million in long liquidations and 300 million in short liquidations. And so many people lost so much money trying to time the last breakout on leverage that they ended up having a lot less allocation than they would have liked during the actual bull market mania phase because they were getting too greedy trying to catch up by breaking this leverage trade and catching the all-time high break over and over and over again. And of course, we have MicroStrategy adding fuel to the fire by announcing that they're going to be using about 600 million worth of stock to buy more Bitcoin. And what's funny is 600 million in Bitcoin buying used to feel like a ton of money, but that's what we saw in just ETF inflows yesterday. But it's still quite a bit of demand, and MicroStrategy has shown that they don't plan on selling Bitcoin anytime soon. So that much Bitcoin taken off of the market is pretty bullish in my opinion, especially in the longer term. And of course, that's going to bring even more FOMO and excitement and could be a reason why we're seeing so much leverage being taken right now as these ETF inflows remain positive and as we continue to see positive news headlines like MicroStrategy is buying Bitcoin, Bitcoin breaks past new all-time highs. I'm sure this is going to be all over CNBC and other news outlets. We also have Bitcoin assets more than halfway to surpassing gold funds, which is crazy when you consider how long these gold ETFs have existed compared to the Bitcoin ones. And of course, mainstream media is going to be all over this and it's going to bring more FOMO and excitement. And this makes it incredibly hard to resist leverage when you feel like you're not as allocated as you want to be, or you feel like you missed the majority of the move. And sometimes the hardest thing to do in a bull market is just to be patient and sit on your existing positions and fight the urge to gamble it all on very small meme coins or on leverage trading because you see everybody around you supposedly making so much money. And to no one's surprise, my portfolio still remains unchanged. I do consider Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana the blue chips as of right now, and that's why they're the only assets I'm interested in holding until Bitcoin gets a weekly close above previous all-time highs. Am I going to miss out on a lot of gains in altcoins before that happens? Of course, but in terms of risk reward and in terms of what I've seen in previous cycles, the best time to buy altcoins has always been once Bitcoin broke above previous all-time highs, because there's so many new altcoins that are going to perform amazing that haven't even been launched yet, because teams wait for the bull market and wait for Bitcoin to be above all-time highs before they actually launch their new projects and launch their new tokens. And of course, there's some existing altcoins that are going to do amazing, and I might buy some of those, but I do want to see this weekly close confirmation that Bitcoin is above all-time highs, because who knows how long this consolidation could be below the all-time high. It took about 4 weeks in 2020. I don't think it needs to take as long this time around, but some consolidation and cool down here before the all-time high break would be incredibly healthy. I just don't know if we see that if these ETF inflows remain this elevated. And of course, you have some fuel to the fire on the supply side as well. 45% of Bitcoin hasn't moved in 3 years. And I don't think a lot of people are going to start aggressively taking profits until Bitcoin is decently above previous all-time highs. I don't think we made it this far to stop here. I think there can be a lot more excitement going into the halving if these ETF inflows continue, and I don't think a lot of this supply is going to become available again until we see $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 Bitcoin. I don't know when that happens or how long it's going to take, but I don't think we're going to see aggressive selling until we see some higher prices, as long as these ETF inflows remain elevated. And so the portfolio still remains unchanged. Would it be great if I was 100% allocated to meme coins right now? Yes, I'd be making a ton of money, but I also know my downside would be a lot higher. So these are the positions I'm going to continue to sit on until we get that weekly close or that pullback and correction, at least a 10 to 20% correction below all-time highs before I'd feel comfortable allocating, or a weekly close above the previous all-time high. And of course, I'll cover that in future videos once I actually buy altcoins and research which ones I want to buy. But for now, my portfolio still remains unchanged. And of course, with Bitcoin finally reaching its previous all-time high, we see Ethereum continuing to move higher and continue its rally, which is pretty impressive judging by the fact that the SEC delayed BlackRock's Ethereum ETF proposal yesterday. And again, this is something that historically would cause Ethereum to sell off by quite a bit when we saw those delays. But I think the market is pretty convinced that those ETFs are coming, and they're not willing to sell at these prices just because a delay occurred, because all eyes are on the May deadline for the Ethereum spot ETFs. And I think it's incredibly likely they get approved, especially with BlackRock's track record of like 577 to 1 or something. But you still have people willing to bet that it won't get approved, and willing to bet that they know more about markets and regulation than BlackRock and Fidelity. And they think that BlackRock is just going to apply for this Ethereum ETF, not knowing if it's going to get approved or not. After how much money they're making on these Bitcoin ETFs, there's almost a 0% chance, in my opinion, that these Ethereum ETFs don't happen after how much popularity and demand there was for the Bitcoin ones. And that's why I'm still relatively heavy Ethereum, even though it's a smaller asset than Bitcoin. It's been performing pretty well recently, and that's why they're about even in my portfolio. I do think Ethereum will do incredibly well as we approach this ETF, and especially once the ETFs go live. As for Solana, not really as exciting as Ethereum and Bitcoin right now. Wicked above the 0.5 Fibonacci retracement, the crucial level that we've had our eyes on, because it's the mid-level from the top to low that we saw on Solana. These tend to be pretty high resistance areas. Bitcoin struggled there for quite a while on its 0.5 Fibonacci, and Solana is struggling there right now. A lot of the money in Solana, I think, is rotating into chasing meme coins, so maybe that'll rotate back to Solana at some point. But I do think we need to see a clean break above all-time high for Bitcoin before Solana really starts to run aggressively. And this wick doesn't look amazing. We wicked above the previous high and we're now trading below that resistance. But of course, we wait for the weekly close before jumping to any conclusions. These candles on Solana, Ethereum, and Bitcoin can look very differently by the time we make it to the end of the week. So we're going to wait for the weekly close before jumping to any conclusions as to what's going to happen. As for Bitcoin dominance, really would love to see this go higher. I don't know if it's going to come from Bitcoin breaking above its previous all-time highs, which sent Bitcoin a lot higher in the previous cycle, or if it's going to take a larger correction and consolidation to pull altcoins down with Bitcoin and cause dominance to go higher. But it would be great to see this 60% 618 Fibonacci level before we see alt season. But even the 56 to 58 region in the short term would be a great opportunity to start buying altcoins, in my opinion. I just have no idea if it's going to come from a larger pullback or a break above previous all-time highs. But for now, these wicks to the upside look pretty weak. But again, we wait for the weekly close before jumping to any conclusions. But I think it's safe to say we are definitely in a bull market. We're seeing some crazy headlines right now. Tether reached its 100 billionth USDT issued, something I couldn't really believe and had to actually check CoinMarketCap to make sure it was true, because that is a crazy amount of money that Tether currently has, and that's a lot of stablecoin demand that could be used to buy Bitcoin in the future, We also have huge NFT purchases back once again, something you really only generally tend to see in bull markets. And of course, whoever bought this alien CryptoPunk for 16 million is probably expecting it to be worth a lot more once Ethereum works its way back to all-time highs and breaks above them. And of course, we've continued to see meme coin mania. Shiba Inu dropped by about 50% on Coinbase within an hour. I remember seeing that wick and it was absolutely insane. We also have Pepe. I don't know why they're saying Pepe coin. It's not even called Pepe coin, but it became the biggest gainer. And you essentially have everybody just skipping right to meme coins after Bitcoin put in this rally, which is pretty funny and really shows you the risk appetite that's here right now. And finally, we have pretty high implied volatility, meaning that on Deribit, people are willing to pay a lot of money for options, expecting a lot of volatility for Bitcoin in the near future. We just don't know if it's going to be to the upside or to the downside. But when you have this steep of a rally, you can expect very strong volatility in both directions. And I think it's going to wreck leverage traders in both directions as well, which is why I'm doing what's very hard for me to do, and that's just sitting on my existing positions and not making any crazy decisions or falling for the FOMO because of all the positive headlines and excitement that's going on right now. But anyway, I know it's easy to be hard on yourself if you weren't 100% allocated with leverage to this rally. It does look like it was, pretty quick and strong in retrospect. But the important thing is to not try to revenge trade your way back up or try to make the money that you could have made by going way further out on the risk curve or using leverage. And that can be one of the hardest things to do in a bull market. So I'm going to try to continue to mention what I'm doing and document my bull market experience this time around, because I made a ton of mistakes in the last one, and maybe I'll try to cover those in future videos, because I could have played the last bull market way better than I did in terms of allocation choices, but we'll probably cover that in a future video. As of right now, it does look like this wick is getting bigger, which is kind of funny. So this is going to be very interesting in terms of where this weekly candle ends up closing. But I still think it's amazing that we were able to touch the previous all-time high before the halving. But anyway, let me know what you expect. Are we going to break the previous all-time high anytime soon? Or was this, in fact, the famous double top scenario where Bitcoin gets rejected at 69,000 and everybody got trapped on this rally? I think it's incredibly unlikely, but nothing is impossible. And of course, we're going to monitor the price action going forward as we approach this halving and as we approach the Ethereum spot ETF deadline in May of 2024. But anyway, thank you so much for the support on the recent videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.